Hi there, my name is Beth Green, otherwise known as Granny Rocks.
And I'm James Maynard, otherwise known as Sweet Baby James. Welcome.
Welcome. So, tonight I am going to talk about, do people have the right to do anything they want? But before I get into that juicy topic, Sweet Baby James is going to introduce our show.
Yes, welcome. You have come to Granny Rocks, where she rocks us and rocks our world with her wisdom, her wit, and her uncommon sense every Monday and Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. Pacific. Thanks for joining us and stay tuned.
Yes. So some of you are not going to like this show because I get into this topic, you have to think about it. It's not just so, and you may not like what I'm saying, but there you
Oh,
go.
yeah. There you go.
Okay. So Sweet Baby James is going to be watching the comments for
Yes,
us
and
today.
Elizabeth says hi there.
Hi there, Elizabeth.
Hi,
Good to
Elizabeth.
see you. So, okay, do people have the right to do anything they want? Now, why do I have to talk about this tonight? Well, it's pretty obvious. People are going into stores and they're not wearing masks, and the people who work at those stores feel threatened, or the people who are in those stores are not wearing masks if they have to, if their company is making them. Anyway, the topic is really in the news as people are deciding for themselves whether or not to do social distancing, but this topic is way, way bigger. In terms of social distancing, it's like, okay, I know what the governor said, but I want to keep my store open. I want to go out and play without a mask. I want to open my church. I want to, I want to, I want to. I understand all that. We all want to do what we want to do. But do you have a right? And then, when I start talking about this, you'll see I'm going to be talking very briefly about conflicting rights, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
not so
Mm-hmm.
simple. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have a right to not get the coronavirus. Um, I'm going to talk about what is a right and how do you get one, or them, or the many, if you have more than one. And is there, last but not least, is there something more important and profound than a right? So, are you ready? Am
Yeah.
I going to get through all of this?
Bring it on, Granny.
Okay. First, I want to talk about conflicting rights. People's rights or perceptions of their rights conflict. In theory, your rights end where mine begin. In other words, you have a right to do something unless it's messing with my rights. You have a right to go anywhere except on my private property because I have a right to privacy and safety in my own home,
And
right?
by the way, Eileen says hi, and she
Hi,
has sent
Eileen.
a pretty rose.
Oh, I'm glad. So she likes the topic. Evident. I'm so glad to hear that. Okay.
And Luan waves hello and
Hello.
sends love.
Hello. Well, we are waving and sending love back. So, as I say, you have a right to go anywhere except onto my private property because I have a right to privacy and safety in my own home and on my land. But of course, does that give me a right to shoot you if you're in the neighborhood? But anyway, that's another topic. And most people will agree with that, but not everyone. Others feel like they have a right to a place to live, even if it's your property, especially if it's empty.
And by the way, Tracy says hi and great topic.
Oh, good. Thank
And
you.
Maria says Fiero Bejarano Hola amigos. Oh,
Hola, amigos. Oh, that was
hello
just her name.
amigos.
Okay. Hola, Maria. Okay. So, people who think that they can come and move into your house, that they feel like they have a right to life. What's the matter with them? But see, I feel as I don't want them moving into my house either. So, there's so much hypocrisy on this topic, you're going to see. So, what do you do when people feel like they have the right and those rights are in conflict with the rights of others? I'm going to give you an example. We live in a rural area, and some people believe they have a right to blow up explosives just for the fun of it. They say, that's why I moved to the country, to do anything I want.
And by the way, Karen says hi you too.
Oh, hi,
Hi back.
Karen. Hi, hi. So, they say I moved to the country because I want to do anything I want. If I want to blow up explosives, I have a right. Now, there are other people who point out conflicting rights, right? These are rights. Everybody thinks they have a right, but they conflict. It's like the rights of wildlife to have peace and quiet and not have their eardrums shattered or be traumatized. Domestic animals, don't they have a right to not be traumatized in their houses? The rights of other people. Now, these people say, I need peace and quiet. That's why I moved to the country. So you see, we're all saying, well, we have the right because that's why I blah, 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 and there's no dialogue, is there? I mean, do we ever talk about this and try to figure it out?
And by the way, Antonio says, hi, my friends.
Oh,
How nice. Hi, Antonio.
Hi, Antonio.
And Albuani says, a beautiful morning in which birds sing the most beautiful tunes and the perfume of roses smell.
Oh, that's
and
nice.
We have roses, images, and love.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That sounds
Thank
a
you.
lot nicer than conflicting rights. So, moving right along, some people think I have a right to run naked through the streets. God made my body. I have a right. And then I say, well, wait a minute. I have a right to protect my children from seeing you run naked through the streets. Or I have a right to protect my husband from seeing you run naked through the. I have a right not to vaccinate my children because I think it's going to kill them or give them autism. And he said, well, I have a right to expect that my children will sit next to, that the children that my children will sit next to have been vaccinated because I want to protect them from those diseases. So you see, everybody feels they have a right. And there's not much conversation about it because we all tend to get polarized by around our right? Everybody feels their rights are superior. Actually, the next question is, are you ready for this? Do any of us have rights? What are rights? And how do we get them? So I said, what does the dictionary say? And this time, I don't agree with the dictionary.
By the way, Amy says, hi, Granny and SBJ. She sent a couple of hearts.
Great.
The folks who are protesting against wearing masks because it stops.
I guess your computer kind of goofed up on you. So, okay. The dictionary says that a right is a moral or legal entitlement to have something or to act in a certain way, right? It sounds logical. I'm entitled. That's what a right is. And many of us think we have rights automatically, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I don't think rights are actually entitlements. I think that in our society, and then I'm going to go beyond that because there's the third part where I get beyond what the society says. I actually think that rights are agreements, and those agreements are based on power. Boom, 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 boom.
Oh, yeah, that sounds right.
Now, the U.S. Declaration of Independence says that we have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The American colonists agreed with that, most of them. But the British government didn't agree. There was no agreement. The British government didn't think that we had the right to go off and become independent. And so how that was decided.
And liberty, not to have liberty as well.
Right. And, of course, at that time, the slaves didn't have liberty, but they didn't have a right to that because they were slaves, right? And women didn't have the right to vote and so on. But see, hey, we white men, right? We had the right. And the British disagreed. And so if you look at it, you realize that who gets to say that they had a right is the one who won the battle. We won the war. The Americans won the war. And so we had the right to that. So the rights are not inherent inside us. They just came from God. They are either based on law. I mean, maybe they do come from God, but not in our society. Either they are based on law, and law is an agreement, or they're based on power, and law is power. The law gives the government the power to take your property if you don't pay your taxes, right? The law gives the banks the power to repossess your car if you can't make the payment. We have the right to anything only because we have fought for it or somebody else fought for it on our behalf, and because we've won. So those are, it sounds so noble. I have a right. I have a right to this. I have a right to this. But actually, it's based on power. So is there something more profound or important than rights?
I wonder. Granny, do you have an answer to that?
I do. First of all, I want a total acknowledgement how hypocritical we really are about our rights. Can we start with that? You know. Now, some people think they have the right to beat their children if they want to. And in some places in the US and in other nations, that is still legal, or it is only just becoming illegal. And why did they have that right? Because they have the power. Because they're bigger than those children, or those children are dependent on them. Now, in some places, if somebody calls Child Protective Services, they might take your children away because the law gives them that power to decide. So now you look at that and you say, now, isn't that interesting? See, this is raw power, isn't it? And individuals resent that. But I have a right. I brought this child into the world. I have a right to tell it to clean my shoes with its tongue, right? Now,
do we have a moment here for another comment?
Yes.
Amy says, the folks who revolt against wearing masks because it's my body and you can't tell me to put on a mask aren't taking into account their impact on everyone else.
Exactly the point, Amy.
And that makes me so angry. But I also know that in my own way, I don't pay attention to or even care sometimes about my impact on others either.
Perfect. Amy, you are already ahead of me because you've gotten to the end of the show. So, so it is, do people really have the right to take advantage of the weakness or dependency of another? Is that a moral right? I don't think so. Think about it. And this is Amy's point, and I'm going to really talk about this.
By the way, Todd says, hello, I'm sorry I'm late, but glad to be here.
Good.
And Jose says, hi, Mama. God bless you so much.
Oh, thank you, Jose.
And Judy says, it seems that today everyone feels like they have a right to be offended, since it seems if you look at someone the wrong way, they become offended.
That could be very true. But some of us think we have a right to be offensive. So.
And by the way, there's another one here.
Oh.
Al-Buwaini says, our Syrian children are hungry, tormented in the camps, and I am sad for them. Yes, small children are tormented.
I believe it. I believe it. He is in Lebanon with, a Syrian refugee, and I'm sure that that is true. And it's sad, isn't it? And yet, who can fight that? Who has the power to fight that? So, we're going back to the torment of our own children, not to speak of the torment that I think it's Nashat, but I don't know which is the first name, which is the last. Often people, people beat their children because they think they have a right to, or they yell at them, or they do any of those things, or they abuse them in some ways. And those children are scarred for life. Those children become frightened, or they become belligerent. Did anybody give the parent the right to torment their children as part of the ritual of having them? And who gives employers the right to endanger their employees, like to make them work in a meatpacking plant or in a Tesla factory? Or who gave you the right to beat your servants? These things impact people, and yet legally you may or may not have the right. Okay. Often people who loudly proclaim their rights are blind to their impact on others, which comes back to Amy's point. But they only resent the limitation of rights when they don't like how those limitations impact them. For example, there was a time when you could smoke anywhere, and that meant smokers had the right to give the rest of us cancer. Smokers had the right to smoke in bars, where musicians had to spend hours and hours and hours every day breathing in that smoke. And they also had the right to fill up the hospitals with people suffering from smoking-related illnesses. And that impacted the rights of others to keep medical costs down because we had to pay for their medical help. And people had to compete for those services. So no, it's exactly as Amy said. There is something we need to be thinking about, which is what is the impact? And we also need to be in dialogue. Let us try to understand each other's perspective. But no, we are so self-centered, and I have to say that includes me. The same people who are out there demanding their right to defy health advisories regarding the coronavirus, which includes our president, by the way, These people will be complaining if they don't get prompt attention for their medical needs if they catch the virus.
That's right.
Where did they get that right from, right? There is no such thing as a right. In a vacuum, there are no rights. There is no such thing as an absolute right. There are, in reality, entitlements based on power, which I've been talking about. And there is something else, which is consciousness. So instead of babbling about our rights, sometimes we need to be thinking about how we are behaving. Sometimes, always.
Always.
And we need to be aware of the impact of our behavior on others. I have seen young girls flouncing around in really short skirts and being very upset when men are ogling them. They say, well, I have a right to dress any way I want. And I get that. I really get that. You know, why should you have to dress in order to protect some man from having a hard-on in an inconvenient moment? But the fact is, you do have to think about how you're impacting other people. We all have to think about that.
And Yasin says hi from Indonesia.
Oh, hi, Yasin. It's so good to see you.
Hi.
So our conscious awareness of the impact of our behavior on others is what makes us caring human beings who can begin to address some of these conflicting rights and interests, which, as we can see, you get it? That there are no rights. They're just entitlements based on power. And that means we have to be thinking about our impact even on strangers. If we all acted consciously and responsibly, we wouldn't be talking about rights and wrapping the flag of rights around us. We would be asking, what should I do that would be for the highest good of all? And we would be respecting that. What do you think, James?
Yeah, then we would have a way better situation than we have now.
We would.
All around the world.
We would. We would. It's really sad. It's painful how little we care about one another, especially the weak. You know, so many men in our world feel like they have a right to beat their wives. Really? Parents think they have a right to own their children. Really? And children feel like they have a right to own their parents. Oh, really?
By the way, Karen, let's see here. She says respecting others' boundaries.
Right. In respecting others' needs, respecting others' integrity, the integrity of them, respecting, understanding them and respecting their needs. Yes.
And Ilan says we have a leader that is a very poor example.
I would agree with you on that point.
And then Todd says, you are so right about our consciousness. We have to rely on our consciousness. And that is difficult because we're part of a collective and don't really exist as separate individuals.
That's absolutely right. So this is a great way for me to try to wrap up this show. Thinking, will that woman ever shut up? Because
you have a right to free speech.
Well, do
Not
I?
really. It's just part of
No,
a social agreement.
I don't. It is, and I don't have a right to free speech if it's hurtful, deliberately hurtful. No, I don't.
That's so true.
I don't have a right. And you know, Todd's point is really important. We talk a lot, at least in the United States, about individual rights, but that assumes we are individuals. We are not individuals. We are all part of the whole, part of the collective. Let's start paying more attention to the collective well-being, to having compassion for everyone in our collective, in caring for one another, and stop trying to act like fools. You know, no, you don't have a right to drag race down the road. Not only could you kill yourself, a person, or a tree, you could kill wildlife, a cat, a dog. It's not about rights. It's about being aware of the existence, the needs, the integrity of others. Let's try to start there for a change.
Yes. And Alan says, true, we are not individuals, we only think we are.
That's right. That's right. So the ego is out there prancing around, and it is very immature. We act like adolescents who think we can drag race down Main Street because it makes us feel powerful to get away with it.
And then, by the way, another comment from Todd. We're impacted by the collective and we get completely away from that. We have to do all this together.
We do. We do. We do. And
that's it.
That's it. So let us make a commitment to stop going on and on about our rights and start thinking a little deeper about the needs of the whole and recognize that we are part of that whole and that we all need to be well for any of us to be well.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much.
By the way, a correction on how I said Todd's. He said we have to all do this together.
Yes, we have to all do this together. Otherwise, we don't have the whole. We only have a fraction of it. So come back every Monday and Wednesday for Granny Rocks at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. Leave us a comment even after the show and I will answer. It may take me a little time because we have another group right after this that I have to run to because I'm always late and I have no right to be late. And Thursday nights, we have Dreams of Peace where I play the piano and it's very soothing. So if I got you riled up tonight, good. And I'll soothe you tomorrow. And it looks like we have
And Laura says, hello, Granny and James, sending love.
Hello, Laura.
Back at you, Laura. Back at you.
That's
and
something.
Alan sends a lot of hearts of love.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And good night.
Good night.
Share.